The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online, a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users, on demand on iTunes and on YouTube, and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you are encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with me or not. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated across the United States into 12 million additional households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. We welcome you to the show. Well, the President of the United States today said the government is ready to step in and do whatever it takes to protect our financial situation here in the country. However, that begs the question, how did we get to where we are today? Could it have been avoided? And what can we do to avert this kind of calamity, fiscal calamity, again in the future? No city in the United States of America is more greatly affected, of course, for obvious reasons, than New York City. And that's why I thought I would bring the Dean of Civic Affairs in New York City and invite him to the show. Henry Stern is a former New York City councilman. He was the Commissioner of Parks in New York City, and he now heads an organization called New York Civic, www.nycivic.org. He is recognized as one of the great thinkers of the Big Apple, and he certainly has some questions about what led to what we're facing today. Commissioner Stern, once a commissioner, always a commissioner. Welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com.
Thank you very much. That's a nice introduction and a kind welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It was very kind of you to join with us today. Today on nycivic.org, you have put your fingers to work and you've asked some questions. 24 questions that really should not be asked today, but should have been asked last year, the year before, earlier this year. Questions that, I guess, if they had been properly addressed before today, might have averted these bailouts that we are seeing.
Well, they were asked by some people, but no one listened. You see, there's a great difference between what is said by someone, some individual or some broker, and what is commonly believed. That's just the way the world is. A half a dozen people or more may know that an asteroid is coming to strike us in a year or so, but unless it's in the papers and television, there's not going to be a public outcry that you might need to correct the situation. That's an extreme example, of course, but it was not. First of all, it's been in the paper since January 2007, and it's been known. And, of course, the insiders at Wall Street knew it all along. But they were greedy. And as long as they were making money by passing this junk back and forth, it was like musical chairs. They just hoped they didn't get stuck with it when the music stopped. Or maybe the music would never stop.
They could always hope so. So it was basically like the Danny DeVito film. They were playing with other people's money and didn't really much care, did they?
No, they didn't, because the mortgage. Well, maybe I should explain to your readers, your listeners, I guess, readers, listeners, viewers, your listeners who probably have varying degrees of financial awareness, but I'll try to explain it directly. What happened was, it's just like it happened before with the dot-coms in 2000. It happened with the S&Ls, the Savings and Loan Associations, which required a $500 billion bailout a few years ago. And it seems that whenever you leave capitalism to its own devices and don't regulate it, people get very greedy. And eventually they get in a situation where the greed can't be sustained without screwing a lot of other people, many innocent people, civilians, bystanders, people who are just saving up for their retirement, who don't intend to play the market. And what happened is there was a drive, there was a human thing. Everyone should own a home. Home ownership is the dream of every American. Well, it may be the dream of every American, but you can't do it unless you can afford it. And obviously, millions of people, they don't have health insurance. They certainly can't afford to buy private homes on their own. Yet they were lured into it because in the old days, you needed a 20% down payment, and then you get a mortgage for the other 80%. That was the rule. Some places required a higher down payment, but they'd never take you for less than 20% because you had to have an equity in the home in order to get a mortgage. Well, what happened is that requirement gradually slipped down 15, 10, 5%, and in the end, they were giving people homes with hardly any or no down payment. Then the interest rate. Well, the interest rate that the market charges is 6, 7%, because that's what you need to make, because you have to borrow the money in order to lend it, and that's borrowing cost plus margin. Well, what people did is they offered you 2% interest or 3% interest for the first year or 2 years, and then it would go up to 8 or 10% interest to make up for it. Well, the people could cover the first year or two, but they couldn't possibly cover 10% interest. So they lost the houses. At that time, they went to foreclosure. Now, what happened is the companies that originated the mortgage, in other words, the wheeler dealers who sold poor people, ignorant people, these mortgages, or people who just hope to get a free house, you never know, lottery, who sold these mortgages to the people, promptly sold them off to banks and other institutions, and they were packaged up and in slices like the rotten